we've just got a lot of wires here. Let me get you guys a little bit closer. You guys can check out and see what we got going on. So, if you guys can see this mess here, we've got our MSD box in here. We've got a variety of wires. We've got our tack over here. We've added a new fuel pressure gauge that's never been wired in before. We've got oil pressure. We've got a temperature, we got oil sending unit, coolant pressure, and our ignition stuff. And our ignition stuff was here. It kind of mounted right in this area, so everything's really short. We're gonna have to extend all this out so that way we can get all of our switches over to this side. We're planning on installing our custom fuse block in right here, and we do have a ground point down here underneath all this mess. We're gonna get all this cleaned up. These are our ground points right back into the chassis. So stick around with us today. We're going to be getting some wiring, cutting, soldering. We're going to be getting it done, trying to get all this stuff buttoned up so we can begin making the sheet metal that goes over top of everything. All right, so my first step is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to cut out all of the existing wire ties that we use to kind of snug everything up. I need to free the whole harness up. We did have to put this MSD box in last year, and it came with a really long factory harness, so I'm going to try to leave as much of this together as I can in the event that we want to move this box to a different race car. Not butching all the wiring up and leaving yourself some room to grow. It's not such a terrible idea when you have factory harnesses, but we're going to go ahead and get jamming here. Updates as far as how I'm going to move forward is, as Drew told me, I got to get out of the mindset of how we had everything wired up and versus how I am going to wire it up. And I think the easiest way to begin is to start at one end of the circuit and work my way out, and that has been the plan. So we've got a master cutoff switch down over here, and so we're going to just work our wires out from there and start with our starting circuit, make sure our starting and ignition circuit is where it needs to be, and then we'll move forward with our lighting circuit. Check out what we got down inside here. We've got I'm putting some pigtails in so that way we can take everything apart, so the wire will be attached to that. We've added in Drew's awesome custom power block here, so now all of our circuits are going to be fuse protected. Prior we were running unprotected circuits except for the MSD box and I think one and the brake shutoff solenoid. Those were both circuit protected, but other than that there was no circuit protection. So now everything's going to be circuit protected. We've got 5 amp fuses in on everything. Possibly go down to like 2.5, 3 amps on some of them, and may have to go up to 10 or 15 amps on one of the other ones, but a 5 amp is a good starting point in case you're trying to do this on your own. And we did purchase most of the electrical stuff off of Amazon. That's just the cheapest way to go. It's way cheaper than your local parts store for picking this stuff up, and unfortunately almost all the stuff is made in China now, so it's hard to find it made anywhere else. All right, we're gonna take a second here to show you guys how we're doing our wiring and our connectors. Again, we're trying to solder as much as we can, but unfortunately with all the plugins and stuff, sometimes soldering isn't an option, so we are using a crimping setup. One thing I highly recommend is a very good set of crimpers. We have 2 sets here. This one here is like a cheapy one from probably Harbor Freight. This one here is one off of the Matco truck, and I really like this one. It definitely crimps really tight. So I think that there's one secret to crimping and using these style of connectors right here, which we purchased all these off Amazon, is to get have a good set of crimpers and to squeeze harder than you think is necessary. If you're using this style here to crimp your connectors, that's no good. They're going to come loose, so this isn't going to work for you. Matter of fact, I don't think you can really get it to work for much. It's very difficult. This is the way to fly. Get you a good set of crimpers. We're going to go through the process of what this is going to look like. We're using 10 gauge wire here, and I'm going to start with just trimming off a little bit of the end so I can get some exposed wire. Just like that. That's just enough. I don't need a whole lot. This is a multi-strand wire, but it is thick. It's not a real fine wire. It's a thick gauge, but it is flexible though. It's not a solid core wire. We're gonna pick out an appropriate connector for what we need. Of course, we're going to need a yellow one for 10 gauge, and I've been using the small loops here. So we're going to start with the small loop one. And to make things look extra nice, we're going to use a little heat shrink tubing. So we got to pick out the appropriate size heat shrink tubing. And I'm just looking for one that slides just over that connector. That one there is just too small, so we're going to have to go up one more size from there. Probably looking at that one right there, and then we're going to shrink all that down together. Well, when you do your crimps, you've got your male and female side of your crimping tool. Make sure that you use the male side on the open side like that. That's how it's supposed to be. And if you could see down inside the connector, I know you guys can't see it on the video, but there's a split in the crimp barrel. So you want the male side right on top of the split of the crimp. We're just gonna insert in our wire. We're gonna look here on the top, make sure we've got it right where we want it. We're going to apply a lot of pressure, and then don't stop there. Come back out here and crimp that thing. Squeeze it hard, just like that. All right, now if I was working on the car, I would have an issue because I didn't put my heat shrink on before I did that. So if you've got this already wired up, make sure you already have that on there. I'm gonna hope and say that I can dodge a bullet here and just slip it over the top, but that doesn't always work out like that. You can't always do that. No. All right, picked up another
the first
nice
and only time that would ever work.
Right, I know, right? I know. So other cool parts about this heat shrink tubing assembly is it is 3 times shrinking. So it actually goes 3 times its diameter is what it shrinks down. This also has an adhesive on the inside, which basically makes it not 100% waterproof, but very moisture proof, and it really looks good, provides a good finish. So check it out here, and maybe Drew will do time lapse on this so that way you guys can see what it looks like really, really fast. It's still hot. If you can see, you may not be able to see it, but the adhesive kind of leaks out just on the very end there, and when it's hot you can kind of just smush it down in there, and it makes a excellent bond. I like how the adhesive comes out the end there. That tells you that it's going to bond good. And it also dries. This gets really stiff, so if you need to do a 90 in this, if this needs to go ahead and do your 90 now like this before that stuff dries. And then that way when it dries, it'll dry like this and you won't have to fight it. But once that adhesive dries, it gets kind of tough. Look at that, in just the time I'm sitting there. So that's a good little tip when you're using the adhesive shrinking. Dodging bullets. Don't really need this to be too much of a 90 here. Alright, so we're going to go down here like this. We're just going to rough it in here. And I need enough to go all the way back to the switch. Handoff.
Yep, got it all tangled up naturally.
Now, how did that happen? I think that happened when you all wound it up. Just get it close down there.
Yeah.
It only has to be a few feet.
Give me something to cut it with.
The good crimpers have good cutters on the end too. Boom. Alright, and with this, we'll just feed it through, we'll get it close, and we'll rinse, lather, repeat for the other side. Okay, YouTube, we're checking back in with you. It's getting late. We've been working hard on this. It's taken all day, and I'm probably about 70% of the way done. And I know it can be done a lot faster, but this is, when you do wiring on a car, you gotta take your time. You want to make sure it's right, but make sure your connections are good. It only takes one wire to come loose in the middle of a race that'll, bit you. You could be up front, and your MSD box could go off, and you're it. You're pulling into the pits. You're done. So hang 10 with us. Check out a few things that we have accomplished. We've got all of this one side of the power bank put in. You want to get a little closer here. You can see down inside we've got all of our power wires run for all of our switches. So our brake shutoffs in, our ignition's all in. We've got about half of the lights in, so we still have got a few more warning lights in the tack to finish wiring up. And when I purchased the power distribution block, the fuse block, I thought that 10 would be more than enough, and quite frankly, 10 is still overkill, but I don't want to splice any wires together. I want to have independent circuits for everything, and 10 is just enough. So if you're doing this on your own, stick with 10, maybe 12. You give yourself a little bit of room for expansion. So hang 10. We're going to keep working hard. I think we might get it finished up before we call it quits. It's getting close to dinner time. But that's it. It's just a slow process. Hang in there. Hang with us.
Okay, YouTube, we got the rack back in here before the snowpocalypse is coming. Look at the snow, it's coming down. Oh boy, look out, Kentuckians. But we got this set in here so it dries. The fuel basket, it's in here working on the T-bar while he's doing all his magic with wires. Magic with wires. I did get us a new aluminum battery tie down. Don't mind this. This is just temporary to see our new lights when we flip the switch. Here is Sam, if you want to take over and talk.
I'm pretty happy with everything. All the lights come on. Did a real good job. Made everything look really nice and clean in our power distribution block. We put an extra ground in right here to help assist with the grounding from the chassis. We also have an independent ground ran strictly for the MSD box, and there's another chassis ground right here. This will actually go to the block of the engine once we get that all hooked up. But Drew, let's give him a shot here. Let's see if all the lights come on. Obviously we don't have everything all hooked up here, but we're going to check it out. So it looks like all of our back lights came on. All the warning lights that were supposed to be on are in. For those of you guys that caught the dash build video, you can see it's pretty much complete now. All the little doodads and switches are all put back in. This is kind of a cool power distribution block. If one of these fuses blows, one of these little LED lights come on, it'll let you know that there's an issue. We are bushed and hungry and ready to call it a night, so we appreciate everybody hanging out with us. We're going to do a little bit more cleanup on this and wrapping up some of our loose ends, but I feel like we're pretty close to check marking this one off the list. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us tonight, and we'll catch you next time.